So genetics and inheritance, there are several different mechanisms for this whole um, mom and dad passing on one of their chromosomes each to the child, and then the child's phenotype uh, results from one of those genes being expressed. There is the dominant or and recessive mechanism, which is what I was just explaining. And within the dominant recessive, you can sit there and figure out single trait crosses or double trait crosses or multi-trait crosses, and we'll get into that. There is also the mechanism of incomplete dominance, where it's not just, like we had as an example before, it's not just somebody has brown eyes and then the other parent has blue eyes, and so the brown eyes cancel out the blue eyes, and so the child ends up with brown eyes. That's not incomplete dominance. Incomplete dominance is um, is a different way of these this genotype combining. Also, there is codominance, and you want to make sure you don't get these two confused, because they're easily confused. They're very similar. Multiple alleles, which means it takes more than one allele on the chromosome to form some sort of phenotype. And then there is the X-linked inheritance, where the gene and the trait is passed on only through the X chromosome and not through the Y chromosome. So let's go ahead and cover these different mechanisms of inheritance. So let's start with single trait crosses. Okay, and this is just for a single trait. And remember, trait is like blue eyes or brown eyes. That's a trait. So we're going to work, for this example, we're going to work with coat length and cats. So the short hair is going to be the dominant gene, the dominant allele, and that's going to be represented by a capital H. The long-haired cat is going to be the recessive allele, and that's going to be represented by a lowercase h. And dominant is always a capital letter, and recessive is always a lowercase letter. So we have the true breeding parents, and remember, true breeding parents are homozygous for these traits. So a true breeding mom for brown eyes would have both of her alleles in the pair of chromosomes be capital B for brown eyes. Or if a dad has blue eyes, both of his alleles in the pair of chromosomes would be two lowercase b's for blue eyes. So true breeding parents, they have the same um, the same trait on both alleles. So say for instance we have a short-haired mom. So remember, short hair is the capital H, and that's dominant. And we have a long-haired cat from dad. And the long-haired, remember, is recessive, and that's lowercase h. Well, if these parents are true breeding, then this mom that has short hair, both of her chromosomes in the pair of chromosomes that have a gene for hair length, both of them are both going to be capital H for short hair, because homozygous means same. So both of her alleles in the pair of chromosomes are both going to be the same thing. They're both going to code for short hair. The long hair for dad, lowercase h, If he's a true breeding parent, then both of his alleles on the two chromosomes in the pair are going to be lowercase h for long hair. So these are both homozygous. And to contrast that versus heterozygous would be something else. Heterozygous would be something like if the mom or dad had one allele on one of the chromosomes in the pair is for short hair, and one allele on the other chromosome in the pair is for long hair. So that would be heterozygous. But that's not what we are talking about when we're talking about true breeding. True breeding means they're homozygous for those traits. So that way, if they were to cross with another person with the same um, traits that they have, the identical genotype, both both the same alleles, then their children and even their grandchildren are going to have the exact same pair of chromosomes alleles. So as I said before, the true breeding parents are homozygous for that trait. So the short hair from the mom is going to have an H and another, or a capital H and another capital H for her pair of chromosomes uh, with the gene for hair length. And she's going to cross with a dad who is homozygous for long hair. So he's homozygous, so he's going to have lowercase h's for both of his alleles in the pair for long hair. So how do we set this up to find out um, how their children would turn out if they were to have children? Well, so we do what's called a Punnett square. Punnett square. And you might have seen this before in previous biology classes. But we're going to take, we'll just take the mom's genotype and put it down in this column. So she has two capital H's for short hair. So we're going to split those up and do one capital H and then the second capital H. And then we're going to take the dad's genotype, which is lowercase h and lowercase h, and we're going to break those up, lowercase h and lowercase h. And we're going to make a little like tic-tac-toe board kind of thing. And we're just going to carry this across the mom's trait, capital H. That's going to be one of the alleles in the new genotype. So you just carry that forward in both of these squares. And then the dad's genotype, one of the H's, the lowercase h, is going to go in this square and is going to go down the column in these squares. And then mom's second capital H is going to go across in the same row. And then dad's second lowercase h is going to go down in the column. And so now we have four squares with new genotypes in them. And remember, a genotype is both of the letters, both of the alleles, because we have a pair of chromosomes that have the gene that code for hair length. So a genotype is going to have both of these in there. So if the mom and dad got together and had children, they could either have a child with capital H little h, capital H little h, capital H little h, or capital H little h. And look at that. These are all the same thing, aren't they? Capital H little h. These are all the same thing. So if a mom who is homozygous for the dominant trait, short hair, has children with a dad who is homozygous for the recessive trait, long hair, all of their kids are going to have one from each. Because when the mom and dad get together to have a child, the mom and the dad are each going to donate one of their alleles to the baby. So now the baby is going to have a capital H and a lowercase h. So if the baby has a capital H and a lowercase h as the genotype, then what is the baby's phenotype going to be? How is this? The phenotype is how it actually shows up in their body. Well, the baby kitten has a capital H and a lowercase h. This capital H is dominant, so that means the lowercase h is silenced. So the capital H is going to be what the kitten looks like, which is short hair. So short hair would be the phenotype of the child that was made by the crossing of this homozygous mom for the dominant trait and this homozygous dad for the recessive trait. So now what if we have a heterozygous parent? So we said homozygous, homo means same, so heterozygous means different. So a heterozygous parent would have one capital H and one lowercase h. Because see, they're different. One would code for short hair and one would code for long hair. So what if one parent isn't homozygous for the trait? So what if the short-haired mom cat is heterozygous for this trait? Well, so heterozygous would mean that the mom has one capital H, one dominant short-haired allele, and one recessive long-haired allele. But of course, the recessive one is going to be silenced by the dominant one, which is why the mom has only short hair. But her genotype is going to be capital H and lowercase h. And then the long hair for the dad has to be homozygous because the recessive phenotype, if the dad actually has long hair, then it has to be both of his chromosomes in the pair has to be homozygous. It has to be both lowercase h's. So if we have a mom that has a capital H and a lowercase, a short hair dominant gene and a long hair recessive gene, and she has kittens with the long haired dad, well, then how could their children turn out? So we're going to do the mom, we're going to put capital H here, we're going to break her genotype up, capital H and a lowercase h, and then we're going to do the dad this way, and we're going to have a lowercase h and a lowercase h. So the mom's capital H is going to go in each of the squares going across this row. Her lowercase h is going to go in each of the squares across in this row. And then the dad's lowercase h, the first one, is going to go in this column in both of the squares. And then the dad's second lowercase h is going to go in this column in both of the squares. And so now this is how their children could turn out. And here's how you read this. So we have capital H and lowercase h, capital H and lowercase h. So these are the same thing. And then we have lowercase h and lowercase h and a lowercase h and lowercase h, and these are the same thing. So if you look at this, 50% chance that the child could turn out with one capital H and one lowercase h, and that would mean that they're heterozygous for short hair, because remember, this dominant H will cancel out the recessive H. Or there's also a 50% chance that the child could have two lowercase h's for long hair. So two um, alleles for long hair, the recessive gene, means that they're going to have long hair as their phenotype. So, and we write that by just saying a 1-to-1, which means it's the same thing as, uh, you know, there's a 1-to-1 chance, there's a 50-50 chance that the child could turn out um, heterozygous short hair or homozygous long hair. So now let's do another problem. In this one, we're dealing with the coat pattern, the pretty colors on the coat. So you could have the dominant allele, which is tabby, which just means striped, or you could have the recessive allele, which is no stripes. So in our parents, and this is the P generation for P for parents. So if we have if we're looking down here, they give us how the grandchildren turned out. So this is how the grandchildren turned out. One child turned out with a homozygous dominant tabby, that's striped coat. One child turned out with a homozygous recessive no stripes. And two of the kittens turned out with heterozygous, and this would also be tabby because the tabby is the dominant one, and so it cancels out the recessive one when it gets to the phenotype. So the kittens are going to have a tabby phenotype. So if we have one kitten with homozygous dominant, that's one, and one kitten with homozygous recessive, and two kittens with heterozygous dominant, let's look and see what that does. If we do this Punnett square backwards, and we put these genotypes of these kittens in here, we have a capital T, and we have a capital T, lowercase t, and we have a capital T, lowercase t, and a lowercase t. So let's see how that, if we work this backwards, we're going to do this to get the parent's genotype right here. Let's fill in these blanks first. So if we look at this row right here, they both have in common one capital T. So there's capital T here and a capital T here. So that means the mom's genotype, it's going down here, her first allele is going to be this capital T. And then if we look at the second row, the T's that this row has in common is a lowercase t. They both have a lowercase t. So that means mom's other allele in the genotype is going to be the lowercase t. Now let's look at dad's. So if we look down this column right here, the T's that they have in common, these two squares have in common, are capital T's. So that means dad's first allele in the genotype is going to be a capital T. And then let's look down this column right here. And the allele that these two squares have in this column are the lowercase t's. So dad's going to have a lowercase t right there. So let's write this information up in the F1 spot. So the mom is going to have a capital T, lowercase t, and the dad is going to have a capital T, lowercase t. So now let's find out what their parents have. So let's find out how these guys got their genes, and let's figure out what the parents would be. And remember, the P generation is going to be true breeding, which means they're going to be homozygous for their alleles. And homo means same, so they're going to have the same two alleles as a pair. So the mom's going to have the same two alleles um, as each other, and then the dad's going to have the same two alleles as each other. Well, if you look at this F1 row right here, we have a capital T and a lowercase t for the mom, capital T and a lowercase t for the dad. But if their parents are homozygous, then that would mean that one of these, this capital T, were to go up here, then that means this capital T also has to go up here because that's homozygous. They're going to be the same. And so that means this lowercase t is going to go up here with the other parent, and this lowercase t is going to go up here with the other parent. So this is um, working backwards to get the original parent, um, their homozygous traits for true breeding parents. So Felix the cat has no stripes, so that's no stripes right here, but both of his parents do have stripes. What is Felix's phenotype? So let's answer this first question first. What is Felix's phenotype? Now the phenotype is how it actually shows up in the body. So how does it show up in the body? He has no stripes. So the phenotype would be lowercase t, no stripes. Now, what is Felix's genotype? And remember, the genotype has to contain both alleles because it's a pair of chromosomes. But if he has no stripes, remember, this is recessive. So recessive only shows through as a phenotype if it's the only one available, if there's no dominant gene around. So his genotype is going to have to be two lowercase t's. He's going to have to be homozygous recessive. Now, what are Felix's parents' phenotypes? Well, we saw in the question, his parents do have stripes. So the phenotypes is just how it shows up in the body, and the information says his parents do have stripes, so that would be a capital T for Tabby for the mom and a capital T for Tabby for the dad. Now, what are Felix's parents' genotypes? So now we need to find out both alleles for the mom and both alleles for the dad. Well, if we know that Felix doesn't have a capital T, if Felix just has two lowercase t's, then that means both the mom and the dad have to have each contributed a lowercase t to Felix. So we know that the mom is going to have a capital T and a lowercase t as her genotype. And the dad is going to have a capital T and a lowercase t as his genotype. So the parents' genotypes of Felix are both heterozygous dominant. Now we're still dealing with coat patterns, so we have the capital T for tabby, that's dominant, and then the lowercase t for no stripes, that's recessive. So if the mom cat is homozygous dominant, will she have any children with no stripes? So what does homozygous dominant mean? Well, homo means same, and she has the dominant, so both of her alleles for the chromosome pair is going to be the same, and it's going to be dominant, so she's going to have two capital T's. Now the question asks, will she have any children with no stripes? Well, what do you need to have in order to get no stripes? This is recessive, so the child would have to have two lowercase t's. The child could not have a capital T in their alleles because the capital T is dominant and it would just cancel out the recessive gene. So the child has to have two lowercase t's, one from the mom and one from the dad. So if the child has two lowercase t's for no stripes, well, how is that possible? Because the child could get one lowercase t from the dad, but the child's other chromosome in the pair has to come from mom. But the kitten can't get any lowercase t from mom because mom has two capital T's. So the answer is no. She will not have any children with no stripes. All of her children will have stripes, which is what a tabby cat is.